Hello audience and welcome to News. I'm Harry Lofton. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Today we're going to talk about Arbor Day and how we celebrate it here in Norman as OU students, OU faculty, and then other community members of the city of Norman. So Arbor Day is a national holiday where people around the country go out and plant trees in their community to celebrate trees and all their benefits, and then just environmental awareness, which is super important. So Arbor Day is celebrated in the last week of April, last Friday of April, around the nation. But here in Norman, we celebrate it at the end of March because of different growing seasons. I think our spring's a little bit earlier than a lot of other communities. This year, when we celebrate Arbor Day, will be our 21st year to plant trees around Norman in light of Arbor Day specifically. And here to give us some insight into the actual experience is Mason Marshall, who celebrated Arbor Day last year.
I participated in Arbor Day with a group of my friends. I joined Big Event with my sorority, so whenever I was planting the trees, I was with about 4 to 5 different girls, and we had an adult chaperone to make sure we didn't plant the trees wrong.
Thank you, Mason. Then I also wanted to address, before we got any further into the podcast, that this is a super different show for a couple reasons. So in light of what we're talking about, Arbor Day and the environment and the Norman community, and then also just how beautiful it is today, I wanted to try something new, which is doing a podcast or broadcasting in motion. So right now I'm actually on my bike, riding around OU's National Weather Center and research campus and all that kind of stuff close to the intramural fields. But as topics change, I'm going to go to different key places of campus and show it to y'all. I'm super excited about it. Be sure to really pay attention to how this plays out in the video, and then comment and just tell me what you think. So if you've been on OU's campus, you would probably agree that it's really filled with a bunch of beautiful plant life. That's where I am now. A bunch of beautiful trees, flowers, super green grass, especially here in the South Oval. And that's because we've always, just from OU's beginning, had like a really big culture of loving wildlife and really integrating it in with our campus aesthetic and culture. That comes from the first OU president, David Ross Boyd, who used half of his salary from his first semester being president of the University of Oklahoma in the 19th century to buy and plant trees to put on and around campus. Many people, when he first started this endeavor, thought he was totally crazy for it. They would say that Oklahoma soil and weather conditions and other things just could not sustain trees. It was not possible. That people had tried before and the trees just died very quickly. But David Ross Boyd, of course, was very smart. He was the president of OU and would choose very specific types of trees that he was confident could withstand Oklahoma conditions. So of course he succeeded. Sorry, y'all, I had to stop for just a second because we're at our destination. We're outside Evans Hall. So Norman community members would notice that David Ross Boyd was having success with these specific trees that he wanted to plant in the Norman community. They were living, they were thriving, so they wanted in too. They wanted to beautify the city that they lived in. So David Ross Boyd would actually give tree seeds and saplings to people who wanted them for free. His only condition was that they had to do a good job, meaning that if the tree that he gave them for free died, then they would have to pay for the seeds or sapling, which I think is pretty fair. They just had to do a good job and care for, water, and pay attention to what he gave them. So of course, this was over 100 years ago in the 1890s. So few of these trees remain today, except of course what we have here outside of Evans Hall, our administrative building, the Piet Elm, I think that's how you pronounce it. But it's believed to have been planted by Boyd a super long time ago. And it was cut down in 2006 because it was hollowed out, but we saved the stump here just to remind us of broadcasting seeds, like the seed sower on the South Oval, and just planting trees and caring for them is just a great demonstrator of what we believe and support here in OU. So while all of his trees have passed over time, this culture of planting trees still definitely remains. Let's hear more from Mason about her actual experience with Arbor Day.
Well, so first of all, whenever we arrived on site, we were taught step by step and watched an example of how to plant a tree properly. All of the holes were already dug for us, so we didn't have to go through the pain of doing that. But there were certain sites marked all through a certain neighborhood. So I actually planted about 6 trees throughout the entire day, but they were each like a minute's drive away from each other kind of thing, and they were just in people's front yards. So we would drive up to the site, and the hole was pretty noticeable. So we had little baby trees that I think that they were already on site. I'm pretty sure they were already on site. And we had designated jobs pretty much of like what each of us did to plant the tree. I was the designated jumping in the hole and compacting the dirt, because I was the only one that was fine with getting dirt all over me. Mm-hmm. So my shoes were red by the end of the day, but I compacted all the dirt, and then we had to I remember we would hit the shovel like on the outer ring of where we were planting it. I don't really remember why, but there was a reason for that. And then we put the little tree in, shoveled the dirt back in, and then I remember specifically learning that if you put the mulch up to the tree, it kills the tree. Apparently you have to leave all the dirt around it and put the mulch in like a little donut around the tree. Okay. And we'd water it, and sometimes we got to meet the people that we were planting the tree for, which was really cool, because we actually got to see like the people we were impacting and how excited they were to get their own tree to take care of, because they had to like apply and like sign up. So they were like fully ready to take on the responsibility of helping this little tree grow.
So, like I said, while a lot of Boyd's trees are gone today, his culture of still treasuring them and planting them around campus is still very alive. Since current OU president in his last semester here, David
Boring.
has been in office, OU students and staff have planted 20,000 trees in the Norman area. And like I said, that's only during his tenure as president. So imagine outside of that. These trees, just like how I talked about how Boyd was very careful with what trees he planted so they could thrive in this environment. All of the trees that we've planted are proven Oklahoma trees. I'd like to thank Alan King and Patty Fuchs, who both work with OU Landscaping and Grounds, for that information. The trees that you'll find around OU campus include swamp white oak, Schumer oak, water oak, Chinese pistache, redbud, and autumn blaze maple. And these are all trees that can really dig deep into Oklahoma soil and then withstand the harsh weather conditions we have here. While I was doing research for this story during our ice storm last week, the weather was just so bad. Everything was frozen. I went on a run and I wanted to take some photos to go with the story. And I have these great photos of these trees in Research Park, a little bit south of OU's Norman campus, which, by the way, Landscaping and Grounds has posted 3,000 trees in Research Park, which are dispersed to other places or stay there. But I'll include those photos. They're really neat. And those trees were standing up against the ice, even though they're still relatively young. Right now I'm standing at Brant Park. I don't know if you can notice all these trees, but on the other side of the duck pond, that's the west side over there, we're on the east side, is where last year OU students came together and planted a bunch of saplings. We'll go over there in a minute and I'll show you how small they are while they're still growing into bigger trees like this one, and then of course the even larger ones. Let's go to Mason real quick and hear just about our takeaways from participating in Arbor Day last year.
One of my favorite parts of the event was meeting the people that I was impacting, and knowing that I was leaving my mark like this tree that I'm planting right now is going to be here maybe until like I pass away, kind of thing. And even if like those houses get like bulldozed down and rebuilt or whatever, like those trees are probably going to stay there and help the area, you know. I also really enjoyed the relationship building that the day helped me with, because I was placed into the girls that I like rode around with getting each tree. I wasn't friends with them. Even though they were in my sorority, I hadn't really talked to them. Mm-hmm. And so I made some new friends that day in this really weird, obscure way.
All right, now we're at Burr Park. It's right next to the dorms, if you can see. That one's Walker, I think, and then there's Adams. This is where this year, on March 29th, we're going to kick off our Arbor Day festivities. We're going to plant the trees on the east side of Brant Park, where we just were earlier by the duck pond. But here, it's where the gazebo is. We're going to start celebrating Arbor Day with a picnic, and then in years past, there's also been a live performance from the OU Jazz Band or another group, and then sometimes we have speakers too, which is super exciting. That'll be something to look forward to. So, like I said, picnic here, and then tree planting down that way at Brant Park, and that's going to be on March 29th. And then National Arbor Day across the country is going to be on April 27th. So last year, like I said, we planted trees around the duck pond on the west side, and then we're going to go and plant 70 more on the east side at Brant Park this year. I encourage everyone to come out, volunteer, enjoy the picnic, because the 70 trees planted this year at Burr Park will make 1,350 trees planted by OU students to celebrate Arbor Day specifically, since we began celebrating it in 1997, which is so cool. Isn't that a great thing to be part of? So come out, be part of your campus culture, plant trees, help the environment, and then, like Mason said, you kind of have a part of your legacy in whatever trees you planted, and it's a great bonding experience too. There's so many benefits. Why wouldn't you come out? Either way, thank you so much for watching this, and please, like I said, tell me what you think of the bike thing. I like doing community stories in motion in the community. I think that adds another effect. But then again, we have to deal with the wind, the sun, and the camera, and then I'm like out of breath the entire time. I don't think too bad, but still. So tell me what you think. I'm super excited about it. Either way, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to me speak. It means a lot. From Harry Lofton, this is News.